Hey guys, today I'll be teaching you how to go from the image on the left to the image on the right. First, I ran Clean Slate from the Paint the Moon Grace collection. I'm going to go ahead and lower that opacity. Now I'm going to open the action and go ahead and select the actions I want to show up on the image and kind of tweak everything and its opacities. So here I'm using paint on color on the background and just to make the background pop a little. I'm just going to tone down clean boost. I'm also going to tone down depth. So now I'm just going to boost the whole action's opacity to make it a little bit more poppy. Now I'm going to go in with Apricot Warmth and I'm going to leave the action all over the image and kind of brush it off a little bit from my subject. Now I'm going to run cartwheels, and this action makes it very airy and warm. I'm going to brush off a lot of this action from the background and from my subject. Now I'm going to run Pure Sun Drops. This action actually takes over quite a bit of the warmth, so I'm going to invert it and paint it on with a white brush. Now I'm going to run Wildflowers to give it that nice matte creamy effect. With matte actions, what I like to do is brush it off my subject so just so they can pop a little bit. So here is our before and our after, just using those actions, and I'm going to go ahead and flatten. Now we're going to run lighten midtones. We're just going to use this a little bit on the background and mostly on her skin. Now I'm going to run Apricot Soft Light. And this action, you have to brush it on. So I'm going to brush it onto the background and a little bit into her hair. All it's going to do is create this hazy, kind of ethereal, I guess you can say, feel to the image. I really like what it does. Now I'm going to run the blush action, and I'm going to use the first action in that little set as a kind of more of a hazier, I guess, brush. And then the second one I will use on her face. So I'm going to zoom in and I'm going to paint it on her cheeks and a little bit on her lips. I'm going to take that blush brush and enlarge it, lower the opacity on the brush, and use it a little bit around the edges just to give it more of a rosy feel. Now I'm going to pump up the warmth and a little bit of the contrast with Warm Oomph. I'm going to go ahead and bring back a little bit of the detail brushing off the oomph mid-tone action. Now let's check out a before and after. Here's before and here is after, just with those actions that we've used. Sorry if I keep saying actions when I mean layers. Layers are the little settings within the action. I'm now going to use the background color pop, and this action has different colored layers within it. And you'll see right now. If you open it up, it'll have the different hues, and you can brush those onto your image and it'll make that specific color pop more. This is what I use a lot with my lavender images. So I'll open it and then I'll use plum and I'll start kind of, I guess, painting on the color back, just because I've been using a lot of those hazy effects. It kind of washes it out. So this is my way of bringing back a color without doing the vibrance effect. So I'll just go through and kind of like hair, like strokes onto the actual purple part. And then I'll change colors and I'll add those different colors to the different tones in the image. So you'll see in a little bit that I'll use kind of like the warmer layers as the kind of toning, I guess you can say, for the image. So I'm using Golden Orchid to make the sunset pop a little bit more. You can play with these as much as you like and use different opacities and kind of use them in your image as you please. I really do like this action. It's not too heavy-handed, and all it does is just kind of emphasize the color you want versus intensifying the whole thing, which I feel is nice. The chocolate layer is one of my favorite ones. It just gives it kind of a more vintage, warm tone without going way too overboard and kind of washing out the image. Here's a little before and after. I'm just going to lower the opacity a little bit and see how that looks. So yeah, when you use this action, you can do whatever you want with it, and I feel like it's one of my favorite in this collection. So now within the Greater Than the Gatsby collection, I'm going to play dark and sharpen lashes. I'm just gonna go over the lashes with this action, and I think that's it. I think that's all I'm going to go over. So then just flatten. So now I'm going to use the Beth Photography Sunset Collection and the Skin Smoothing action. And I'm just going to quickly run this all over her skin and then just flatten. I'm going to lower the opacity though. So I feel like the image is missing a little something, so I'm going to go into my favorite kind of sunset cheat sheet from Florabella. The collection, I can't remember exactly what it's called. Oh, I think it's called Color and Light. And I'm going to use the Action Peachy Sun Glow. So this gives you kind of a faux sun. And I'm just going to use that on the background. And I'm going to brush it off her hair and her face just to make it a little bit more believable. So I feel like I need to add a little bit more of the detail back. I'm going to use levels and I'm going to pull in the darks and see what I can do and pull in the lights. I'm just going to keep playing with this till I find exactly what I'm looking for. I'm going to invert and brush it onto where I feel needs it the most. This is a really good tip if you have an image that seems a little too hazy. You can just make it pop to your specific taste. So I'm going to go ahead and use the Vibrance layer, and I'm going to bump that up, and I'm going to brush it off her skin and a little bit off the background where I feel like it's a little too intense. So we'll see where this goes. So I feel like the green is a little too saturated, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the hue and saturation layer or adjustment, I'm sorry, not layers, sorry guys, adjustment, and I'm going to tone it down just a bit. What I did was I used the little slider tool right up by the colors, and you can select the specific color that you're looking for and then adjust that color by itself. So I'm just going to brush it on the green, and you can see that it kind of took away a lot of the intensity, which is what we want, so it can look a little bit more natural and not so fake looking. I mean, we've done enough to this image to the point where it looks nothing like what it did before, but let's tone it down a little. Alright, so now we're just gonna tweak the contrast. That looks good. And I'm gonna go ahead and flatten that. Okay, so now I'm gonna duplicate my background, and I'm gonna go to filter, blur, lens blur, and then it'll open up, and then I'm gonna use this blur to take away the noise from the background that accumulated while we were using different actions and trying to make it more hazy and light. And then once it adds to the new layer, I'm going to then invert that layer, that way I can paint it onto the image. Make sure you avoid any of the hair and foreground because it will make it look really fake, and we're trying to keep it a little natural, even though, like I said, we've kind of completely manipulated this image. Okay, so let me just show you a before and after. So here's our before, and here's our after. So one last thing I'm going to do is duplicate the layer, and I'm going to go ahead and use the burn tool, and I'm going to darken up her hand because it's a little too light, and that'll be it. Last thing I did was just flatten and save. I pressed Command S to save, or Control S if you're on a PC, and then that'll pop up. You press OK, and you're done. Thanks for watching, guys, and I hope you enjoyed. See you on the next one.